I want to talk today about, I think, a really important subject for this time of year. It's called belief and belief systems. Because we all have them. Everybody has a belief system. And almost all of them in many ways have been imposed. They are systems that come at you as a child and then continue to evolve through the stories you hear from your parents, your grandparents, your friends, your schools, colleges, on and on and on. And then separate from a belief system is something called faith, which is how much do you believe in your belief system? How much do you invest in it? Are you willing to die for it? Are you willing to kill for it? Is it very loosely held? Is it the foundation of your life? And every one of you has a different answer to what I'm talking about. The problem with belief systems, and I think this is clear but maybe not, is that all of us are choosing to believe a story, some kind of story that we've been told. Sometimes the weight of that story has power because it's an old story. It has been told to us for generation upon generation and generation, and therefore it has to be true. And there are certain world stories, or world myths even, that have come to dominate world culture. And these world stories, world narratives, if you will, are very powerful. And much of our history, much of our own personal lives have been shaped by these stories. One of the things that falls away in the experience of awakening or enlightenment is your own personal story. The personal narrative just suddenly implodes. It deflates. You no longer remember or believe in much of your personal story. You see it as really just that. It's a story. The weight of the story is that it's reinforced endlessly by everybody around you. The story of your life has been told to you not only by your parents and your siblings and photograph albums that you have at home and videos. All of these things just tell you this is your story. And of course, how could you not believe your story? You were there. You were there. That story has to be told. And one of the ways you establish and reinforce that story is by telling it to yourself over and over and over and over. This is my story. And it becomes so rock solid for most people that it cannot be questioned. How can it not be your story? Of course, you were born, you had these sets of parents who messed you up in this particular way, you had brothers and sisters who confounded your life, you have people in your life who you connected with who brought you enormous love and enormous betrayal. All of these incredible dramas all have happened, and they are your story, and if you don't believe in that, what can you believe in? So your primary belief system is your own story. When awakening happens, which is a rare event, but it does happen, and your story falls away, and you begin to go, who is this person? What is this story I'm believing? And you don't feel any connection to it. It feels like some kind of dream that's passed through and that no longer really coheres. But what falls away, just to make this clear, with your own personal story, which is a very radical experience, is all narrative, world narrative, all belief systems. You look at all of it and it's just one big story that we have chosen to believe in, and whatever part of it we choose to weave into our story. And so there you are with an enormous investment in your story and the world's stories. And the core world stories are usually, let's call them the religious stories, they're called miracle stories. And they're called miracle stories because they're so out of the ordinary. Things happen that cannot happen. A whole sea just parts completely, so one group of chosen people can walk through it and another group can ride their chariots into it and be swallowed up. Some people walk on water in our stories. In some of the big stories, there are elephant gods and monkey gods who wage war in the cosmos. We can go back into stories of gods who live on a mountain that we call Olympus. And various cultures bring enormous investment into these particular narratives. The rational mind, when it tries to look into some of these stories, goes, really? Really? That can happen? I believe that that happened? I believe the Red Sea parted? Well, it's a little bit hard sometimes to believe, so what comes up is faith. I have faith that that happened, conviction that that really took place. I really will give my life to that story. Why? Well, often because thousands of your relatives over the course of a millennium have died for that story. So it has real weight and meaning. It signifies something in your brain that gives it unbelievable truth. And the more faith you have in that story, in that belief system, the more secure you feel in your life. Why do you feel secure? Because truth has been revealed to you and you believe it with all of the faith possible in your psyche, and you are therefore, well, in some religions, saved. You're going to be fine. In the craziness of this world that is so uncertain and so unknown, you know the truth. And you have found salvation. And not only have you found it, you want everybody else to find it. Because you know the truth. You know it because your parents told you, your grandparents told you, and their grandparents told you, and you can trace it way back. In some cases, thousands of years, in some cases, a few hundred years, whatever your particular belief system, some since the beginning of time, perhaps. But whatever it is, you want everyone else to believe it for some very significant reason. And I have found this from when I was younger and trying to make everybody believe in what I was then believing in, which was a certain spiritual path. If you can convince other people to believe this, it helps you believe it. the more you reinforce your own belief system with other people joining in, the more you feel, how could I be wrong? How could I be wrong? Everyone else believes it. So it satisfies you so deeply to go out there and convert the world, because then it will be unchallengeable. But when enlightenment occurs, or awakening occurs, all of it falls away. Everything you believed in falls away. And what remains is what I call mystery. Just mystery. What is this? What am I? Who am I? Because when you're not your narrative, when you're not your story, who are you? If you aren't this person who was born to this family with this name, if you're just this presence, this thing that's clearly got a body, clearly talking, clearly has a history of some kind, but if you're not identified with all of that, then what are you? And that becomes an enormous question. And there appears to be, from what I can tell, no answer. There is only this. And we can say in our mind that this is something scientifically, molecularly, it's a particular kind of construct. We exist in a solar system, in a universe that has so many galaxies, that has this level, this amount of sort of width and depth and breadth. We can talk about it having this particular age. We can go into this whole scientific belief system that all of this can be explained through physical, tangible, explorable truth. But even that falls away. And then when you talk to the most intelligent and explorative scientists, they will tell you truly that even for them, the deeper they go, the deeper the mystery, the more profound the mystery. But what happens to people who look at the mystery with an enormous amount of focus and attention is they experience something called wonder, awe, beauty. But I don't want to tip it all to the yin side. Let's go to the yang side. They experience horror, darkness, destruction, suffering. So many people want to believe in the light side. Love, joy, bliss, eternal revelation and brilliance. Other people want to run from horror, darkness, meaninglessness, nothingness, emptiness. And yet somehow it's all one package. It's one package. And what can you do with that package? Well, I'll tell you, you can do a lot with it with your mind. The mind has an enormous ability to engage all that stuff and turn it into what? Narrative, story, more story. I understand it to be this, I understand it to be that. It just absolutely creates day in and day out the story. And it weaves it in funny little ways. It weaves it in, I'm so happy today. Oh, I'm so miserable. Oh, that stupid idiot got in my way on the freeway. Oh, you start to weave this big, big tale of yourself, and then you bring into it your belief system. So you go, oh, I'm a spiritual person, so I shouldn't get angry at that guy who just cut me off on the freeway. I'm going to let go of that. And you have this incredible kind of mental involvement with the narrative. And it's a deeply, deeply engaging and ultimately unsatisfying narrative. it's kind of pointless, and we all know it's kind of pointless. It lacks a certain something which we call meaning. We hunger for meaning, and somehow meaning doesn't quite resonate completely in the head. It has to come from somewhere beyond the head, and where would that be? And the next place we go is kind of into our heart. And we experience love, joy, connectivity, oneness. And in that, we get a hint of meaning. Somehow, this experience of connectivity to other seems so important. And then if we really penetrate that, it's connectivity to ourself, the self. What is that? What is that? What am I connecting to? What am I? When narrative falls away, there is only that. There's only the self. You're not connecting to it, you are it. There's no connection. You are that very truth. You are the truth. You are the presence. You are what is. It goes deeper. It goes down into your navel chakra, into your sex chakra, into your base chakra. It creates this incredible centering of yourself, this wholeness of self, with all of this being and all of this presence suddenly vibrantly alive through your own kind of, let's call it your spiritual practice, starts to make you aware. But it doesn't have to be spiritual practice. It can be living your life. Living your life touches all of these places inside you. And you don't have to have a spiritual practice. You just have to live. You just have to live. But as long as you live and you translate all of this stuff into story and narrative, you will be living in a fantasy land. Either a private fantasy land of your own with your name on it, or a world fantasy land with the names of all sorts of other much bigger narratives. But that will all be a fantasy. It's a big fantasy. What will not be fantasy is when all of that falls away and what is left announces itself to you. And what announces itself is this thing I'm calling now presence or being. Being. It's just there. It's undeniably there. I can ask you, where are you? And all you can possibly say to me is here. And I could ask you that no matter where you go or where you are, and you will always have the same answer. Where are you? I am here. Who are you? I am. And you can usually give me a name. But when the name falls away, what do you have left? All you know is, I am. You don't even know your name. You don't know what you are, but I am is an absolute. I am. As soon as you say, I am this, it gets a little bit confusing because this is always in motion. And in truth, I am is in motion. But there is something else that is not in motion. It is absolute stillness. And it is only approached through absolute stillness. And that is presence. It has no name, it has no identity, it has no history, it has nothing. It has no character. It is absolute being. It doesn't come from anywhere, it doesn't go anywhere. The whole narrative of the universe disappears into it. Everything disappears into it. And in some remarkable way, it is you. What does that mean? It's you. It's who you are. Get rid of the story, get rid of the world narratives, and what do you discover? You discover you. Not that your story and world story won't make every effort possible to reinforce itself, because it does all the time. It's reinforcing itself every second. But if you can find stillness, sit still, enter presence, you discover it never goes anywhere. It doesn't go away. You go away. You re-enter the story. You get re-caught by the drama all around you. It's human nature to do that. It's just human nature. But once you have discovered presence, once you discover yourself, you can never be truly, fully lost. You will always know what you are. Even if you're not experiencing it consciously or emotionally, you can never, ever not be that. It's your true nature. It's the true nature of everyone in this room. And when we sit here in class, true nature, if you want to call it that, presence, being, is trying to find its way out of your crazy addiction to your story. That's all it's trying to do. It's trying to work its way back into being there. But the truth is, it doesn't have to work out at all because it hasn't gone anywhere. So really what's going on is you are trying to get back to that. But the you that's trying to get back to that is a story. So it's a crazy conundrum. The you that wants to be free of being you is the very thing that keeps you you. And so there's a kind of profound need for surrender. Just, I give up. I just give up. And then it happens. Liberation from you. Liberation from your story. Liberation from the world's story. Liberation, freedom, awakening, enlightenment. You can't make it happen. And everyone who is in spiritual pursuit is working so hard to get there. I want this so badly. But that thing that says, I want this so badly, is reinforcing the separation. You can't have it. That's the total illusion. You can't have it because there's no you to have it. There's nobody there. There's a story. And I know everything in your mind is going, but, I have pictures when I came out of my mother's womb. You know, people are having that these days. I've got them of my son Ari. There's proof positive. I was born. I have a story. Okay. You know, I lived. Okay. But when this awakening happens, you'll be shocked at how ephemeral everything that happened was. You know, I didn't give birth, my wife gave birth, but I had 2 children. You know, one of them is sitting here right now. I've lived a life with this guy, with Joshua, and most of it's already just fading away. The most real part of Joshua now is his fatherhood and the fact that he's brought this amazing child into the world who is nothing but presence. Although she is now beginning the journey that we all begin into identifying with loss of presence. Yesterday, for the first time in the car, she had this amazing line. She always talks about Talia is this, Talia is that in the third person. Presence is always watching. Yesterday, for the first time, she said, quite dramatically, I am me. And that's really kind of the beginning of the end, but it really isn't. It isn't really the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of the journey. And every one of us is on it. There's no one in this room who's not on that journey. And in a way, it kind of broke my heart. And last night I watched a movie, which is a rather fascinating movie called Amour, which is the last months in the life of a couple, a man whose wife is dying. And I suddenly thought of my granddaughter, ultimately one day dying. I mean, it's a horrible thought on one level, but it's so real. And I thought, so what is this about? What is this about? What are all the acquisitions and the life experiences and all the dramas that she's going to go through about? Because they're all going to end up in the same place. We're all going to end up in the same place with this loss of all of it. And what it's about, and what you understand when the awakening takes place, what it's about is this. This And I mean it exactly this very moment, this instant. That's what it's about. It's not about anything else. And how unbelievably important it is to have this moment. That the whole universe exists for this moment. That it came into being whenever it did, if it ever did. So this could happen. Now, this will be different in a minute. It will be different in 5 minutes. But the this will always be this that is. The this that is what is essential. And the joy of discovery of this, the incredible experience of suffering this. You only suffer this because you don't get it. You only suffer life because you don't enter this. You run from it. You can't run from this and love it. You have to enter it even when it hurts, even when it's painful. You lean into it. You don't run from it. And that's spiritual work at work. When you get that message, you're alive and in play with the universe. When you don't get that message, you're lost in narrative. I'm so unhappy, I'm miserable, I have a terrible life, everything is horrible, it's going to get worse, I can't stand this world, blah, blah, blah. That's what people live. Or, I just won the Oscar, the lottery, I'm the luckiest person in the world, I've got everything is beautiful, I'm so blessed. Either narrative is crazy. They're crazy because they're totally temporary. It all dissipates. It all fades away, and you won't remember much of it later on. You really won't. Every father I know who becomes a grandfather says, "Why? I don't remember anything about my children, but everything about this grandchild is completely vivid and real to me in a whole new way." This is because life is present. It's all in the moment. It's all in the moment. It's not in the past. It's not in the future. You got it right now. If you're here now, you got it. And if you're not here now, you're not going to have it. So the whole goal is to be present. And the great thing about what's happening in this room is that presence is available. It's always available. But in this room, we're about presence. So as you sit here saying, "I really want to be present," you're really creating a lot of problems. Because wanting to be present is the very thing that keeps you from being present. So just sit here and relax. Just let it be. And watch what happens. Presence rises. Now, yes, sometimes you're going to sit here so caught in your story that you don't want to be in that story. And that's really what keeps people in the story, not wanting to be in the story. Nothing gets you more wound up than trying to get out of it. Because you can't get out of your story. All you can do is become one with your story, accept your story, and in the moment of deep acceptance of what is, presence arises. Then there's no battle. You're in it. There's no fighting. There's no trying to be into the next thing. There's no saying, "I hate my life." It's just, this is my life. Whatever it is, I'm telling you, the minute you embrace it, the truth of it becomes more powerful than the positive, negative values you give to it. Truth of story is everything. Truth is in your story. Truth is in all of the stories. Even the great world narratives, there is great truth in them. But you have to find that truth through your own presence, through your own exploration, not through narrative that was fed to you by other people or that you created yourself. The truth of the world stories is available to you through your own opening to truth. And when you do, you'll see exactly what's real in the world, and you'll see what's not real. You'll know what serves you in life and what doesn't serve you. When you truly open to presence, all of this rock-solid density of your being will start to erode. And there you are. There you are. There you have always been. There was never a time when you were not. There was never a time when you didn't exist. Ever. And that's the journey. That's the whole journey. You know? I keep asking, why do I make these talks? Why do I make these tapes? Because, I don't know who listens to them. But in my mind, I've created a story. And my story is, 50 years from now, my granddaughter Talia, may pick up one of these tapes or two of them and listen. And she may go, oh. It's my story. I tell it to myself. It's really valuable to me. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But it serves a purpose. It just serves a purpose. And if along the way you guys heard it, and it made sense, that would be really great. And I know some of you do. I know this thing of presence is so important. And I'm going to talk about one more quick point here, because this is getting long, but I want to say it. All we want from each other is presence. It's all we want. We want to sit in each other's presence. How often does it happen? Rarely. Rarely. But when it happens, we know it, because there's this thing that happens. It's like happiness, connectivity, a sense of being acknowledged, understood, met at some place beyond ego, a sense of sharedness. It's so beautiful. And I look for it all the time. And in the past week, it was interesting. I had a lot of people who wanted to have lunch with me, and I go to this deli nearby, and I sit in the middle of all these old Jewish people, and everyone's got gray hair, and someone said to me, I'd like to go there because I'm the youngest person in the room. But it's not exactly true, but it's an aging population. But I sit there with the people, whoever's coming, and we sit and talk, and it depends on who I'm with. There's a moment where the story and the narrative stops, and real connection starts. We're talking presence. We're talking what is. We're talking what needs to be expressed. There is an honesty, an openness, an earnestness, an appreciation of one another that is so beautiful. And it happens to me at every one of these gatherings. The only time it didn't happen was about one time at another deli. And a dear friend of mine who has ADD and takes Adderall for it. And the Adderall has sped him up so much that a curtain of activity has created a density that is impenetrable. Just impenetrable. I can't get through the noise, the barrage of stuff that's trying to keep this person focused. And someone I love deeply, and before the Adderall, there was always access. And now there was no access. And so I kept saying, I'm here. Why am I here? And if I can't find access, this is a completely wasted experience. Really, because most dialogue is wasted experience. So what came to me was just say, you know what? Your Adderall is creating a real problem for me and for you. Not that you shouldn't do it, but I can't get through. I can't get in. I can't connect. I can't talk to you. It was the most open, honest statement I could make. And his reaction was, what? He thought he was completely available. And only when I said that, only when I was honest in my feeling and honest in what I had to say, did he slow down long enough for this really powerful old connection to reestablish itself. And presence was there for the rest of the dialogue. But it required a conscious effort on my part, a depth of honesty that would possibly be threatening and difficult in the relationship, but it was welcomed ultimately, and we had what we needed to have in our moment together. It was really beautiful. I look for this all the time. And what's been happening to me in the last 2 years is I find more and more people who come to talk without knowing it are coming for presence. And it just keeps happening. And even with people who have no idea of what presence means, who have no consciousness of it, They come and we talk, especially people who I care about who don't know what I'm talking about. We talk about whatever they want to talk about. But I engage it with presence. And the presence fills the space. And it's the most beautiful, wonderful exchange. And it's not understood necessarily. It's not appreciated as an act of presence. It's just appreciated as, oh, that was a nice lunch. That's all that they get. But I know that what was exchanged in that hour or whatever was truth, being. It's so beautiful, it's so wonderful, it's so desirable. It's all we're here for on this planet. It's all we're here for is to recognize this one thing we share, this one thing that we are. All of us are one thing, which is this I am. Not I am Bruce, or I am Josh, or I am Blanche, or I am whatever, all of that stuff which keeps coming up, of course, all the time. It's I am. And we want to look at each other and know that. We want to acknowledge that. And when we do, the truth of that is liberating. It's beautiful. And if you forget it over and over and over, well, that's the state of human existence. But if you have a place to go where it can be re-amplified, reignited on a regular basis, that's beautiful. If your belief system brings you to that place, and people who go to church and synagogue and to the mosque will often have that reawakened over and over. But if you can allow it to awaken presence and not identity, not narrative, not story, if you can have that truth go into you, and believe me, the teachings of all of these great stories can get into you and can awaken you. They can, if you don't make it something that separates you from everyone. If it makes you something that makes you one with everyone, you will be freed by your own belief system. But the moment you use it to create division, to create war, to create hostilities, you're in trouble. So, my encouragement for everybody in this holiday season is find this presence that imbues your life and share it all day with everybody you know. Send this love everywhere. I mean, everyone's trying to do it. You know they are. You're getting emails and you're getting Christmas cards and all these other things. Everyone's trying to do it. It's the spirit of the time, and it's a gorgeous spirit. Find the truth of that. Find it in yourself. Find that space in you that wants to be present, that wants to share presence, and you will get the present of your life. Because there's nothing better in the universe. There's nothing you want more, nothing any of us wants more than this. And the craziness of it is, we already have it. It's already there. But to rediscover it is as good as discovering it for the first time. To rediscover it is to know again and again and again, I am that. I am. So, any questions? Okay, well, I hope you have a wonderful holiday, everybody. I hope some of this resonates. The next class is before New Year's, right? So I won't wish you Happy New Year's yet, but for those of you I don't see, Happy New Year. The rest of you, Merry Christmas and whatever else you celebrate. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday.